Hi everyone, David Aragona and Craig Milkowski here, taking a look at the feature race at Belmont at the Big A on Saturday. Race 10 on their 11 race card is the Wild Applause Stakes for 3-year-old fillies. This race going 1 mile on the inner turf course. Supposed to have nice weather Saturday at Aqueduct, so I think we're expecting firm turf for this stakes race, which we always want to see. And Craig, it's a pretty competitive field signed on for this one. 9 runners entered for the turf, 2 main track only participants who I think are unlikely to get a shot in this race given the weather forecast. And unsurprisingly, got a few Chad Brown runners in this race, 3 to be specific, all drawn in the outside posts.
Yeah, I'd be a little surprised if we didn't have Chad Browns at this point, but I don't think this is a walkover for him. Yes, he has a couple of the favorites in here, but it's a good, deep, competitive field.
Yeah, I think you can make some kind of case for almost everybody in this race. So it's a very competitive affair to get a sense of how these fillies might sort themselves out in terms of the early pace. Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector. And there's no flag showing up favoring a particular running style, Craig, but I do think that the number 4, Makanga, is likely to find herself on the front end. And it's just a question of how fast she has to go. In her last race, nobody went with her. She was able to get very comfortable all alone on the front. We'll see if she gets more pressure here.
Yeah, she's almost assured to lead this race. I mean, all of her turf races, she's either been on the front or the one time she wasn't, it was an extremely fast pace with pace figures in the 140s. And when she's left alone, she can be pretty dangerous, winning 2 out of the 3 times she's found herself all by herself.
Yeah, if the pace does heat up, it might help some of those Chad Brown runners, particularly a horse who's not even shown on the pace projector, the number 9, oversubscribed. She's considered a deep closer as far as the pace projector goes, but she does have the LP flag indicating that she has the highest Timeform US late pace rating in this field. Let's go through these runners in number order, beginning with number 1, Gala Brand. We'll take a look at her last victory up at Saratoga last summer during her 2-year-old season when she beat the boys in the Grade 3 with anticipation. Just the second start of her career. She was coming off an impressive sprint victory, and she got the job done here over a pretty nice colt in Carson's Run, who did come back to win the Grade 1 Summer Stakes in his next start at Woodbine. Gala Brand finished off the board in her next 2 starts to finish off her 2-year-old campaign, Craig, but I think you can make some excuses for both of those losses.
I would agree. I was a little disappointed she didn't really take a step forward numerically from her early races in the summer all the way through the fall, culminating with her Breeders' Cup, basically non-effort, but obviously those are probably better horses. But yeah, if you think she can get back to that win at Saratoga and with anticipation where she overcame a slow pace to come from last and show that kind of finishing kick, she could be dangerous in this spot.
Yeah, I thought the trip just didn't work out for her in the Miss Grillo 2 back. She got way back in the early stages. That was a race that was dominated towards the front end, waited for a long time in traffic before moving belatedly. And the Breeders' Cup, there just wasn't a whole lot of pace in there. Didn't sit up for her. She was 3 wide around most of the track. Didn't produce a kick, but just seemed like she wasn't, that race wasn't really set up for her that day. Coming off the layoff, Belmont has solid numbers off layoffs like this. Nothing overly positive or negative, so we'll see if she's able to get a more favorable pace setup on Saturday. The number 2 is Curlin's Girl, one of the most experienced runners in this field with 7 starts under her belt already. And she's raced 4 times on the turf, has never won on the surface, but she's run pretty well in all of her turf races. And I guess you could make a minor excuse for her last time, Craig, in the Wonder again, because you see all those red colored coded pace figures. That was sort of an oddly run race where the pace seemed pretty fast. And the top 2 horses leading early did ultimately finish 5th and 6th, one of which was the favorite. But the horse who won the race was actually contesting the lead before backing off and then making a second move to get the job done. So it wasn't a prototypical pace collapse kind of race. Curlin's Girl is just going to have to run a little better than she has in her last 2 starts.
Yeah, I guess the excuse you could make is she has shown she isn't a horse that has to be on the lead. And in fact, she had never really led early before that race. So maybe it was an unfamiliar position and she went out, went fast, got hooked a little bit, but she didn't have a whole lot left in the stretch. And you wonder if she can revert to that running style because with a horse like Makanga in here, it feels like she's going to have to.
The number 3 is Vino Rouge, who is an interesting 3-year-old making her second start off the layoff. She's another one who has never actually won a race on the turf. She's only run on it a couple of times in her career debut, where she finished pretty well to get up for fourth, just looking a little green that day. Was the first start of her career. She subsequently broke her maiden on the dirt, tried a couple of stakes races, just didn't really move forward on that surface. But Craig, I thought she was pretty interesting getting back on the turf last time, where the bettors dismissed her at 10-1, probably due to the fact that she was facing a tough field of older rivals. I think she was one of the only 3-year-olds in that race, facing primarily 4-year-olds. And the winner, no-show Sammy Joe, she's a pretty nice Graham Motion trainee. Lady Beth, a horse who had tried some stakes company, a 4-year-old for Chad Brown. She actually finished ahead of the favorite in that race, who was a horse Startup Mentality, who had also tried some stakes for Chad Brown. So she kept good company last time. If she repeats that speed figure, she's potentially a real player in here.
Yeah, I think she's pretty dangerous in here. And I didn't love the trip. She was kind of chasing 2 runoff horses early in the race, even though one of them, I think, still finished in front of her for second. And she actually got shut off a little late. Now, I don't think she would have beat the winner that day. That one was moving a little better, but she might have been much closer for second. And I just think she's a horse who has more talent than what we've seen on the turf so far. I think the Connections knew that when they debuted her there. She wound up breaking her maiden in an off the turf race, and they kind of went with dirt from there. But I think her real future is going to be on the turf.
Interesting jockey decision between the 2 horses that we're talking about now, and the one up next is John Velasquez was the regular rider of Vino Rouge as well as Makanga. He chooses Makanga for this race, and we'll take a look at her most recent start when she got the job done first off the trainer switch to Rick Dutcho after cycling through a couple of barns racing in Florida. She beat a couple of common rivals that she's also going to find herself facing in this race. Tina Ballerina and Oversubscribed. We'll get to them in a little bit, but first, Craig, let's focus on Makanga, who was the gate-to-wire winner of this race. She had shown some ability down in Florida on the turf, upsetting a maiden field in her second start when she first got on the surface in gate-to-wire fashion. She definitely is the kind of horse that wants to lead the field early, get comfortable up front, and she might have the opportunity to do that here. Just gets a class test.
Yeah, it seems like she's going to be all alone by herself. I was a little skeptical of her after that maiden win at Gulfstream and slow pace over that Gulfstream course that can often favor speed. But she showed when she's loose, she's very dangerous, and she could be dangerous here. I do think she'll have to get a little bit faster. And I wonder, I'm not sure which horse it will be, but it seems with 3 Chad Browns, it's unlikely that they're just going to let her go.
Yeah, you could say she set a legitimate pace last time. There is one red color coded pace figure for that race, but watching it, she got very comfortable up front, never got a challenge, just basically ran in her own race like she was just solo around the track. We'll see if it's the same thing in this Wild Applause. The number 5 is Tina Ballerina. She was one of the also-rans in that optional claimer that was won by Makanga last time. I didn't see the excuse for her, Craig. She saved ground much of the way, had her chance in the stretch, just never really produced a kick. She fits on speed figures. I mean, she's run some decent ones with her last couple of starts, both turf races. I just think she's going to need another step forward to best this field.
My thoughts exactly, because it's hard to find an excuse for not beating the 2 horses that finished in front of her. Makanga, yeah, she had everything her own way, but she was setting a solid pace, and Oversubscribed, who we'll get to later, definitely had some issues in the race. So she would have to take a pretty big step forward just to pass those 2, let alone the rest of the field.
The number 6 is Awesome Check. She is coming off a layoff for trainer Horacio De Paz, a horse who did improve when she got on turf last year, albeit against New York breds, breaking her maiden in that state bred race last September. Subsequently, they tried open company in stakes races a couple of times. Didn't run that well in the Chelsea Flower, but she did improve last time in the Tepin Stakes when they showed a little more initiative, sending her to the front in a race that didn't appear to have a whole lot of pace on paper. And she rewarded that aggression, nearly pulling off a 15-1 upset that day. Now she's coming off the layoff, Craig, and we've seen it before where horses really improve from 2 to 3, especially those that have those turf inclinations.
Yeah, that 99 pace figure in November could easily wind up as like a 108, even a 110 at this point in the 3-year-old season as we move towards July. If she takes that step forward, she could be very dangerous in this spot.
And Greg, I know you found a DRF formulator statistic for trainer Horacio De Paz coming off layoffs like this. Does well specifically in turf races of layoffs of 6 months or more, 10 for 45, 22% with a healthy $2.84 ROI. So something to be aware of with Awesome Check, who is going to be a price in this race. Let's now talk about those three Chad Brown trainees who are drawn in the far outside post positions, beginning with the number 7, Grayosh. She's another one that's coming out of that grade 2 Wonder Again. And, Craig, we should mention, even though that Wonder Again got the graded rating and this race is a listed stakes, I'm not sure this is really that much of a class relief for the horses coming out of the Wonder Again, because the favorite didn't show up in there. And this is a pretty salty affair for a listed stakes race. So I don't know if it's really a step down in class for Grayosh. She ran well too back to break her maiden. Didn't get the smoothest trip in the Wonder Again, sort of tried to move up inside on the far turn, had to wait in traffic behind a tiring runner, angled back towards the inside, found a seam in the stretch, but it seemed like by that point the race had already gotten away from her and she was just a little one pace to the wire.
Yeah, it was an interesting trip, and I wonder if she's the one who maybe might want to apply pressure to Makenga. She has the most early speed of the Chad Brown trio. I don't really view her as a win contender in here, and I just can't shake that feeling that maybe she's in here to ensure an honest pace.
I was wondering if that might be the case for the number 8, Chantilly Road, who we'll take a look at next, and we'll actually watch her breaking her maiden. She had lost to Grayosh in her prior start in April, got run down by that foe that day. Her first turf attempt. This is her second turf race where she got the job done. Rated off the pace here, was a little keen in the early stages. It seems like she's a horse who's still kind of figuring how to be a turf horse, because she had started her career on the dirt, not looking like that much, but she's got one of those strides, and you can see it in this replay. She really covers the ground well, reaching out with those that loping turf action, and it seems like she's been improving since getting on this surface. Earned a competitive speed figure last time, Greg, and watching back that replay, while the runner-up, who was a first-time starter for Chad Brown, got a slightly tougher trip, I didn't think that horse was ever going by Chantilly Road. She was holding her at bay. I think it's interesting that she's running in this race as opposed to an allowance event that she would also be eligible for Chad Brown, because when Chad starts multiple runners in these races, you don't want to overlook the one that's going to be the biggest price.
No, that's for sure. We've seen as much as, I want to say, the 4th betting choice among Chad Brown's win races. So he sends them to win for the most part. Sometimes it's for the pace, but I see what you mean with Chantilly Road. I just have a feeling that the way she won her last race, they're not really going to want to send her to the lead. She's an interesting horse because she started out her career on dirt, but she's obviously been much better on turf. The race in February at Aqueduct, that makes sense. Obviously, they're not running on turf, but even at Tampa in the winter, where Chad Brown often runs on the grass, they went on dirt. But obviously, you can put a line through those races, and if she runs back to that maiden score, I think she's pretty dangerous.
Yeah, she's one of those horses that doesn't have a huge turf pedigree, but when you watch her run, you really can see turf in her stride. And I think Chad Brown's pretty smart. He figured that out after a couple of races. The number 9 is oversubscribed, and I think she is the one that's probably going to attract the most support of this Chad Brown trio. And Craig, we only showed the stretch run of that race that was won by Makenga. I think the important part to note for oversubscribed was past the half-mile pole coming around the far turn. She steadied pretty badly. Irad Ortiz was trying to move up between horses. A horse came over on her, and she had to take up and lost 2 or 3 lengths of position and all of the momentum at a significant point in the race where you want to actually be building momentum and gaining speed. She was going backwards. It's a credit to her that she was able to re-rally for second. I think both of her races are better than they look on paper, because she also had to overcome a very slow pace to get up to share that victory in a dead heat on debut. This filly has talent. I just don't think she's going to fly under the radar as a trip horse for a pretty popular barn.
No, I think she's the horse to beat in here for sure. And as you said, that the trip, yes, she lost a couple lengths, but she really lost momentum. And it's a credit to her that she was able to still get up and get second. When you watch that replay again, I mean, it's with a furlong to go, it doesn't look like there's any way she gets second. And she was really game to fight through on the inside. So this is a filly with talent. Unfortunately, she draws the outside post, so not sure that's ideal for her, but she's going to be coming late.
Well, let's throw up our picks for this wild applause. And I think we've got some similar ideas in here, Craig. We just went in slightly different directions for our picks. We both have a lot of respect for the number 9 oversubscribed. She is our second choice in the race. I do believe she will be one of the favorites in here. So don't know how much value she's going to offer, even though we both respect her chances. I've got your horse, the number 3, Vino Rouge, in the mix. I think her last race, though, that she might have really improved as a 3-year-old.
Yeah, I think it's pretty impressive she was able to run that well against older horses this early in her 3-year-old career. I didn't love the trip, and I think she's sitting on a big race, and she's certainly going to offer more value than some of the Chad Brown runners.
Yeah, and I was just trying to search for some value among the horses that are going out for that Brown stable with the number 8, Chantilly Road. I've been a fan of this horse ever since she got on the turf. I think it's interesting that Joel Rosario is getting the call for this race, a big upgrade from some of the jockeys that have been on her previously. And I'm hoping she's able to work out a forward trip in a race that features a slightly murky pace scenario. So the number 8, Chantilly Road for me, the number 3, Vino Rouge for Craig in race 10 at Belmont at the Big A on Saturday, the wild applause. Good luck after playing the races this weekend.